In the quiet town of Maplewood, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the streets. It was a typical evening. Families gathered for dinner, children played outside, and the local diner buzzed with the chatter of patrons. But beneath the surface of this idyllic small town lay a simmering tension, one that had been brewing for years. The community was divided, and the recent headlines had only intensified the struggle between the police force and the residents, particularly within the black community. Officer Jake Collins, a seasoned member of the Maplewood Police Department, was known for his no-nonsense approach to law enforcement. He prided himself on maintaining order, but his methods had drawn scrutiny. Many residents viewed him as a symbol of the systemic racism that plagued their town. Collins, who hailed from a long line of law enforcement officers, had always believed that his actions were justified, that the law was black and white. On this particular evening, he was patrolling a predominantly black neighborhood that had seen a rise in crime. As he drove through the dimly lit streets, he noticed a figure walking along the sidewalk. The silhouette was that of a man dressed in dark clothing, his hands tucked into his pockets. Collins felt an instinctual surge of suspicion. He slowed down, his eyes narrowing as he took a closer look. The man was tall and athletic, his build suggesting he was no stranger to physical challenges. As Collins approached, he could see the man's face illuminated by the glow of a nearby street lamp. It was clear he was a black man, and the officer's heart raced with a mix of apprehension and unwarranted fear. Without a second thought, he flipped on his sirens, the shrill sound echoing in the quiet of the night. "Get over here!" Collins shouted, stepping out of his cruiser. The man paused, a look of confusion crossing his face. He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, but Collins was already on edge. The officer approached with caution, his hand resting on the grip of his service weapon. "Who are you?" Collins barked, his voice laced with authority. "Just walking home," the man replied, his tone calm but apprehensive. "I live just a few blocks away." "ID?" Collins demanded, his eyes scanning the area for any potential threats. The man hesitated for a moment before reaching into his pocket. "I'm just trying to get home. I'm not doing anything wrong." "ID now," Collins insisted, his voice rising. The man complied, pulling out a wallet. As he opened it, something glinted in the light insignia that caught Collins' eye. The officer's heart sank as he realized the significance of what lay before him. The man was an Army officer, his uniform evident even in casual attire. The officer's name tag read, David Johnson. Collins felt a rush of emotion. He had grown up admiring the military, the discipline and honor that came with serving one's country. But in that moment, the weight of his actions bore down on him. He had approached this man with prejudice, allowing his biases to cloud his judgment. The realization came too late, like a punch to the gut. "Sir," Collins began, but his words were cut short as he saw Johnson's expression shift to one of fear and confusion. The officer's instinct took over. His training kicked in, and in a split second, he drew his weapon. "Don't move!" he shouted, the firearm now aimed at Johnson. "Officer, please, put the gun down," Johnson pleaded, raising his hands higher, revealing the insignia on his wrist. "I'm an Army officer. I'm not a threat." But the fear in Collins' eyes had morphed into something else, a sense of desperation. He felt trapped in a moment he couldn't escape. The weight of his badge pressed heavily on his conscience, and he was acutely aware of the consequences of his actions. In that moment of panic, a noise echoed through the streets, a sudden rustle in the bushes nearby. Collins' instincts flared, and he pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot reverberated through the air, a piercing cry that shattered the night. Time slowed as David Johnson fell to the ground, the shock evident on his face. Collins stood frozen, the reality of what he had just done crashing over him like a tidal wave. He rushed to Johnson's side, kneeling in the dirt, his heart racing. "Oh my God, what have I done?" he muttered, his voice shaky. Johnson lay there, gasping for breath, the weight of the situation hanging heavy in the air. I'm a soldier," he managed to say, his voice faltering. "Why did you shoot me?" The officer's mind raced, grappling with the gravity of the moment. I thought you were a threat," Collins stammered, tears welling in his eyes. "I didn't mean to. But his words were lost in the chaos that followed. Sirens blared in the distance as backup arrived, lights flashing in a frenzy of blue and red. The crowd began to gather, whispers and gasps echoing through the night air. "Get an ambulance," Collins shouted, panic surging through him. The reality of what he had just done was sinking in, and the faces of the onlookers were a blur. He could feel their judgment, their anger simmering just below the surface. As paramedics rushed to the scene, Collins could only watch helplessly as they worked frantically to save Johnson. The man who had served his country, who had sworn an oath to protect and defend, now lay bleeding on the asphalt, an innocent life, caught in the crosshairs of a moment's prejudice. The news spread through Maplewood like wildfire, igniting protests and calls for justice. The community, already fracturing under the weight of systemic racism, erupted with anger and sorrow. In the days that followed, the town became a battleground, one where the fight for justice clashed with the fear of those sworn to protect. Officer Jake Collins was thrust into the spotlight, his actions scrutinized and debated. The narrative quickly shifted, and he became a symbol of everything that was wrong with law enforcement. But as he sat in his dimly lit apartment, the weight of guilt pressing down on him, he realized that he was not just a scapegoat in a larger story. He was a man who had made a terrible mistake, one that would haunt him for the rest of his life. As the sun rose the next day, casting light on the town of Maplewood, Collins knew that he would have to confront the consequences of his actions. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was determined to seek redemption. Little did he know that the events set in motion would lead him down a path of unexpected revelations, forcing him to confront his own biases and the very system he had once believed to be infallible. The road to redemption would not be easy, but it was a journey he was willing to undertake, one that would forever change not only his life, but the lives of many in the town of Maplewood. The days following the shooting of David Johnson became a blur for Officer Jake Collins. The media frenzy engulfed Maplewood, and the once quiet town transformed into a hotbed of protests and community outrage. The local news stations set up camp outside the police department, their cameras capturing every angry shout and every tear shed by the grieving community. Collins found himself at the center of it all, a reluctant figurehead for a movement that had been simmering for years. Inside the police station, the atmosphere was tense. Officers whispered among themselves, their expressions a mix of disbelief and fear. Collins was a pariah, a man whose split-second decision had not only changed the course of his life, but had also ignited a firestorm of anger and sorrow within the town. He sat in a small conference room, surrounded by fellow officers and the chief of police, who was attempting to maintain some semblance of order amidst the chaos. "Jake, we need to understand what happened that night," Chief Ramirez said, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "You need to give us a full account of everything." Collins nodded, his heart heavy. He had replayed the events of that night over and over in his mind, each iteration bringing fresh waves of guilt. "I thought he was a threat," Collins began, his voice barely above a whisper. "When I saw him walking, I felt this instinct to protect myself. The moment I saw his wallet, I realized who he was, but it was too late. I didn't have time to think." "Your instincts shouldn't override your training, Jake," Chief Ramirez replied, his tone firm. "You're a trained officer. You know the protocols. You're supposed to de-escalate situations, not escalate them." "I know," Collins said, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I know I messed up, but I can't change what happened. I just don't understand how it got to that point." The room fell silent, tension hanging in the air like a thick fog. Collins felt the weight of their stares, the judgment written on their faces. He was a man who had sworn to protect, and yet he had become the very threat he had vowed to combat. The guilt was suffocating, and he could feel his resolve wavering. Outside, the protests intensified. People marched with signs demanding justice for David Johnson, chanting slogans that echoed through the streets. The sound reached Collins' ears, a haunting reminder of the life he had taken. He felt a lump form in his throat as he thought of Johnson's family, the pain they must be enduring. It was a pain he had inadvertently inflicted, and it gnawed at his conscience. In the days that followed, the investigation into the shooting was launched. Collins was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome, a decision that felt both like a relief and a punishment. He found himself alone in his apartment, the silence echoing the turmoil within. He spent countless hours scrolling through social media, reading the reactions of his community, each post a dagger to his heart. People called for his job, some even calling for his arrest. But amidst the anger, there were voices of reason. Friends from his past reached out, offering support and encouragement, urging him to stay strong. Yet, he felt unworthy of their kindness. He was a man who had failed, and he was haunted by the image of David Johnson, lying on the ground, gasping for breath. One evening, as Collins sat in a haze of self-pity, his phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from a number he didn't recognize. Intrigued, he opened it, revealing a simple text: "I want to talk. Meet me at the park." Collins hesitated, a mix of curiosity and dread flooding his mind. Who could it be? He considered ignoring the message, but something compelled him to respond. "Who is this?" he typed back, his fingers trembling. The reply came quickly: "Someone who knows what you're going through. Just meet me." After a moment's contemplation, Collins decided to go. He needed to speak to someone, anyone who could possibly understand the turmoil raging within him. The park was a place he had frequented during happier times, a refuge filled with laughter and light. Now, it felt like a ghost of his former self, a reminder of the innocence that had been shattered. As he arrived at the park, dusk had settled, casting a muted glow over the landscape. He spotted a figure sitting on a bench, cloaked in shadows. With each step, his heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at him. As he approached, he recognized the facial woman he had known in high school, Tasha, someone he hadn't seen in years. "Jake," she said softly, her eyes searching his face for answers. "Tasha," he replied, surprised to see her. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about what happened," she said, her voice steady. "I wanted to see how you were holding up." Collins felt a mixture of relief and guilt wash over him. "I don't know if I'm holding up at all," he confessed, sinking down onto the bench beside her. "I messed up, Tasha. I shot an innocent man." "You were just doing your job," she said, her tone gentle. "But it's complicated, isn't it? The way things are right now? There's so much anger." "What do I do? How do I fix this?" Collins asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Tasha took a deep breath, her expression thoughtful. "You can't fix what's already happened, Jake. But you can start by listening. There are voices in this community that need to be heard. Maybe you can help bridge the gap, help people understand that you're not just a badge. You're a person who made a mistake, and you're willing to learn." Collins looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "But will they ever forgive me?" "Forgiveness takes time," she replied. "It starts with honesty and humility. You need to be willing to face the consequences and show that you're committed to change." As they talked, Collins felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. He realized that perhaps he could use this tragedy as a catalyst for change, not just for himself, but for the entire community. He needed to confront his biases, to understand the systemic issues that had led to this moment. In the weeks that followed, Collins began to take action. He reached out to community leaders, organizations that focused on racial equity and justice. He attended meetings, sat in on discussions, and listened to the stories of those who had been affected by police violence. Each conversation was a painful reminder of the chasm that existed between law enforcement and the community. But it was also a crucial step toward understanding. He learned about David Johnson's life, about his dedication to service, and the impact he had made in the lives of those around him. Collins felt a deep sense of regret, realizing that he would never have the chance to apologize to Johnson or to his family. As the investigation continued, Collins faced mounting pressure from both the police department and the community. He knew that his journey toward redemption would be difficult, filled with obstacles and challenges. But he was determined to confront his past and work toward a better future, not just for himself but for everyone in Maplewood. Through it all, he held on to Tasha's words, understanding that forgiveness was a process, one that required patience and a willingness to change. It was a long road ahead, but for the first time, Collins felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that through understanding and compassion, he could contribute to healing the wounds that had been inflicted on his community. As the weeks passed, the tension in Maplewood remained palpable. The protests continued, fueled by anger and a call for justice. But amidst the turmoil, Officer Jake Collins felt a growing determination to engage with the community he had so deeply harmed. He understood that healing would not come easily, but he was committed to doing the work necessary to bridge the divide and foster understanding. One evening, Collins received an invitation to attend a community forum organized by a local coalition advocating for racial justice. The event was designed to give residents a platform to voice their concerns and experiences with law enforcement. Collins hesitated at first, the fear of facing the very community he had wronged clawing at him, but he knew he had to go. It was a crucial step in his journey toward redemption. The forum was held in the town hall, a building that had seen its fair share of heated discussions. As Collins entered the room, he was met with wary glances and murmurs. The atmosphere was charged with emotion, and he felt the weight of the scrutiny upon him. Taking a deep breath, he found a seat in the back and prepared to listen. The moderator, a local activist named Maya, stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding attention. With a firm yet compassionate voice, she welcomed everyone and explained the purpose of the gathering. "Tonight, we're here to share our stories, to discuss our experiences with the police, and to seek a path toward healing and understanding," she said. "This is a safe space for all voices to be heard." As the discussions began, Collins listened intently. Community members recounted painful encounters with law enforcement, sharing stories that revealed a pattern of fear and mistrust. One woman spoke about being stopped while driving home, her children in the back seat, and how the encounter left them all shaken. A young man shared his experience of being followed by police officers while walking home from a friend's house. Each story resonated with Collins, a stark reminder of the reality faced by those in his community. When it was time for questions, Collins raised his hand, his heart pounding. "I want to apologize for the pain that my actions have caused," he said, his voice unsteady. "I know that my shooting of David Johnson has only deepened the wounds in this community. I am here to listen and learn. I want to understand how I can help." A murmur of surprise rippled through the audience. Maya nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I've realized that I've been part of a system that perpetuates fear and injustice. I want to change that, but I need your help. I need to hear your truths." The room fell silent for a moment, and then a man in the front row spoke up, his tone filled with skepticism. "You think just saying you're sorry is enough? You have no idea what it's like to live in fear of the police." Collins nodded, acknowledging the man's anger. "You're right. I can't fully understand what you go through, but I want to learn. I want to be part of the solution, not the problem." Another voice chimed in. "And how do we know you won't just go back to being the same officer after this? What guarantees do we have?" Collins felt the weight of those words. "I can't promise that it will be easy, and I can't change everything overnight. But I'm committed to working with you, to advocating for change within the police department. I want to be held accountable." The conversation continued, a mixture of skepticism and cautious optimism filling the air. Some community members expressed a willingness to engage, while others remained deeply distrustful. As the evening wore on, Collins felt a sense of purpose beginning to take root. He was no longer just an officer. He was a man seeking redemption, willing to confront his own biases and the systemic issues that had led to this moment. After the forum, Maya approached Collins, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "You handled yourself well tonight, but this is just the beginning," she said. "People are hurting, and trust won't come easily." "I understand," Collins replied, his determination unwavering. "I'm ready to do the work. What can I do next?" Maya considered his words. "We're planning a series of community workshops focused on police, community relations. We want to create dialogue, but we need officers who are willing to listen and learn. Would you be interested in participating?" "I would," Collins said without hesitation. "I want to be part of those conversations." Over the next few weeks, Collins immersed himself in the workshops. He attended sessions where community members shared their experiences, and he listened intently, taking notes and reflecting on the stories being shared. He participated in role-playing exercises that highlighted the impact of bias and the importance of de-escalation techniques. Each session brought new insights and revelations, opening his eyes to the complexities of the issues at hand. One evening, During a particularly emotional workshop, a woman named Lisa shared her story of loss. She spoke of her brother, who had been wrongfully accused and subsequently killed in a police encounter. The pain in her voice was palpable, and Collins felt the tears welling in his eyes as she recounted the anguish her family had endured. He couldn't help but think of David Johnson's family and the pain they must be feeling. After the session, Collins approached Lisa, his heart heavy with empathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Your brother's story matters, and I want to ensure that this doesn't happen again." Lisa looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and hope. "It's going to take more than promises, officer. It's going to take real change. You need to be willing to fight for that change, not just talk about it." "I will," Collins vowed, feeling the weight of her words resonate within him. "I'll be an advocate for real change, and I'll do everything I can to make sure your brother's story is heard." As the workshops continued, Collins formed connections with community members. He learned about their struggles, their dreams, and their hopes for a better future. With each conversation, he felt the walls he had built around himself begin to crumble. He realized that his journey toward redemption was not just about him. It was about fostering understanding and creating a more equitable community. One evening, after a particularly intense workshop, Collins sat down with Maya to discuss the progress being made. "I feel like we're starting to build something meaningful here," he said, a sense of pride swelling within him. "People are opening up, and I can see the beginnings of trust forming." Maya smiled, her eyes shining with hope. "It's a long road, but you're doing the right thing. It's not just about policing. It's about building relationships. You're showing that you care." As spring approached, the atmosphere in Maplewood began to shift. The protests continued, but there was also a sense of hope emerging. Community members felt empowered to speak out and demand change, while Collins and his fellow officers were slowly learning the importance of accountability and transparency. One day, Collins received a call from Chief Ramirez, requesting a meeting. As he walked into the chief's office, he felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Jake, I've seen the work you've been doing in the community," Chief Ramirez said, his tone serious. "It's commendable, but we need to address the department's policies as well. We can't ignore the systemic issues that led to the shooting." Collins nodded, his heart racing. "I agree. We need to implement training on bias recognition and de-escalation techniques. We need to hold ourselves accountable and ensure that we're serving the community, not instilling fear." The chief leaned back in his chair, considering Collins' words. "You're right, and I want to support those changes. But it's going to be a battle. There are officers who will resist." Collins sighed, understanding the challenge ahead. "I'm willing to fight for it, Chief. We owe it to the community to create a safer and more just environment." As the sun set over Maplewood, Collins felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to continue the work he had started, to honor David Johnson's memory by advocating for change and healing within the community. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was ready to face them head-on, driven by the belief that transformation was possible through compassion, understanding, and unwavering commitment. As the days turned into weeks, the momentum for change in Maplewood continued to build. Officer Jake Collins found himself at the forefront of a movement that was reshaping the relationship between law enforcement and the community. The workshops he had participated in were gaining traction, drawing in more residents eager to share their experiences and push for reform. Collins felt a sense of purpose with each session, understanding that these conversations were vital for healing. One afternoon, after a particularly spirited workshop, Collins received a message from Maya. "Can we meet? I have an idea that I think you'll want to hear about." Intrigued, he quickly replied and arranged to meet her at a local cafe. As he entered the cafe, he spotted Maya seated at a table in the corner, her expression animated. "Thanks for coming, Jake," she said, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "I've been thinking about how we can amplify the voices of those in our community who have been affected by police violence, and I believe we need to create a public forum." Collins leaned in, intrigued. "What do you mean by a public forum?" "It would be a community event where people can share their stories, not just in workshops, but in front of a larger audience, maybe even invite local media," Maya explained. We could create a platform for people to speak their truth, to hold the police accountable, and to demand change. Collins felt a thrill of possibility. That sounds like a powerful idea. But how do we make it happen? Maya smiled, her enthusiasm contagious. We'll need to reach out to local organizations, build a coalition, and gather support. I think we can get the backing of activists, community leaders, and even some sympathetic officers who want to see change. Over the next few weeks, Collins and Maya worked tirelessly to organize the forum. They reached out to community members, local leaders, and organizations focused on social justice. As the date approached, excitement and anticipation filled the air. Flyers were distributed, social media posts were shared, and the community began to rally around the event. Collins felt a sense of hope as people expressed their eagerness to participate. He knew that this forum had the potential to be a turning point, a moment where the community could come together to demand accountability and change. But he also felt the weight of responsibility resting on his shoulders, knowing that his prior actions had contributed to the very fears and mistrust they were trying to address. The day of the forum arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with energy. The town hall was packed, people filling every seat and spilling into the aisles. Collins stood at the front, his heart racing as he looked out at the crowd. He spotted familiar faces, those from the workshops, community leaders, and even some officers who had expressed their support for reform. Maya opened the event, her voice steady as she welcomed everyone. Thank you all for being here today. This is a space for healing, for sharing our stories, and for seeking justice. We are here to hold ourselves accountable and to demand that our voices be heard. Collins felt a swell of pride as she spoke, knowing that they were creating something meaningful. One by one, community members took the microphone to share their experiences. Stories of fear, pain, and loss filled the room, each account echoing the need for reform. A young woman spoke about her brother, who had been wrongfully accused and arrested, leaving the family in turmoil. An older man shared his experience of being stopped for no reason, the fear of confrontation etched in his voice. With each story, the sense of urgency grew. Collins could see the pain on people's faces, and he felt a deep sense of responsibility to help facilitate the change they were demanding. When it was his turn to speak, he stepped forward, his heart pounding. I want to thank everyone for sharing their stories today, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I know that my actions as an officer have caused pain in this community. I'm here to listen, to learn, and to commit to change. We need to confront the systemic issues that have led to this moment, and I will work tirelessly to be part of that change. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Some listened with skepticism, while others nodded in understanding. Collins felt a mixture of fear and hope as he spoke, knowing that he needed to earn their trust. As the forum continued, Maya introduced a panel of community leaders and activists who engaged in a dialogue with Collins and other officers who had come to support the cause. The conversation was raw and honest, a reflection of the deep-seated issues that plagued their town. One of the activists, a man named Marcus, challenged Collins directly. How can we trust you? How can we trust the police when we have seen too many lives lost and too many stories ignored? Collins met his gaze, determination in his eyes. I understand your skepticism, and I don't expect you to trust me right away. But I want to be held accountable. I want to work with you to change the narrative. We need to create a system where officers are trained to de-escalate situations, to understand the communities they serve, and to prioritize the safety of all residents. Marcus nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. Words are one thing, but actions speak louder. We need to see real change, not just promises. I agree, Collins replied. We are committed to creating a community policing program that emphasizes building relationships, understanding, and accountability. I want to invite you all to be part of that process. As the discussion continued, Collins felt a shift in the room. The community began to engage more openly, asking questions and sharing their concerns. The forum became a space for dialogue, a place where both community members and officers could confront the difficult truths that had long been swept under the rug. As the event drew to a close, Maya thanked everyone for their participation, urging them to continue the dialogue beyond the forum. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We must keep pushing for change and hold each other accountable. Together, we can create a safer and more just community." As people began to leave, Collins felt a sense of hope that he hadn't experienced in a long time. The forum had fostered connections, opened lines of communication, and reignited a sense of community among those who had felt alienated. He knew there was still much work to be done, but he felt a renewed commitment to the cause. In the days that followed, Collins began to put into action the commitments made during the forum. He reached out to local organizations to collaborate on community policing initiatives, emphasizing the importance of transparency and accountability within the police department. He organized training sessions for officers, focusing on bias recognition, de-escalation tactics, and the importance of building relationships within the community. But even as progress was made, Collins faced challenges. Some officers resisted the changes, clinging to the old ways of thinking. There were moments of frustration and doubt, but he reminded himself of the stories shared at the forum, the faces of those who had suffered. He was determined to push through the resistance, to be a voice for change within the department. One evening, as Collins prepared for another training session, he received a call from Chief Ramirez. "Jake, I need to talk to you. Can you come to my office?" The tone of the chief's voice sent a jolt of apprehension through Collins. He quickly made his way to the station, wondering what news awaited him. As he entered the chief's office, he found Ramirez sitting at his desk, a serious expression on his face. "Jake, I've been monitoring the progress of your community initiatives, and I'm impressed by the steps you're taking," Chief Ramirez began. "But I also have concerns. There are some in the department who feel threatened by the changes you're promoting. They believe you're undermining the integrity of the police force." Collins felt a knot form in his stomach. "I understand that change is difficult, but we need to prioritize the community's safety and trust. We can't continue to operate as we have." "I agree," Ramirez said, leaning forward. "But we need to find a balance. We can't alienate the officers who are resistant to change. It's a delicate situation." Collins took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I'm not trying to alienate anyone, but I can't stand by and allow fear and mistrust to persist. We need to create a culture of accountability, and that starts with honest conversations." The chief nodded, considering Collins's words. "I want to support your efforts, but we need to work together. Let's find a way to engage the officers who are resistant and bring them into the conversation. We can't afford to lose anyone in this process." As Collins left the chief's office, he felt a mix of relief and determination. He understood the challenges ahead, but he was committed to advocating for change, to ensuring that the voices of the community were heard. With a renewed sense of purpose, he began to formulate a plan to engage his fellow officers in the ongoing dialogue, knowing that true reform would require collaboration and understanding from all sides. As he prepared for the next chapter of his journey, Collins felt hopeful that by working together, they could create a safer and more just Maplewood for everyone. As the months rolled on, the community of Maplewood continued to evolve. Officer Jake Collins had become a central figure in the ongoing dialogue between law enforcement and the residents. His commitment to fostering understanding and accountability within the police department was beginning to bear fruit. The community forums, which had initially sparked skepticism, were now a staple in the town, drawing larger crowds and more engagement from officers eager to learn and grow. Collins had worked tirelessly to bring about change, organizing training sessions for officers that focused on empathy, community engagement, and the importance of building trust. He invited community members to share their experiences, encouraging police to listen actively and reflect on their own biases. With each session, he saw a gradual shift in attitudes among some of his fellow officers and openness to understanding the complexities of the relationships between law enforcement and the community they served. One afternoon, the police department hosted an open house to showcase the new community-oriented policing initiatives they had implemented. The event was designed to build bridges and allow residents to interact with officers in a more relaxed environment. Collins felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he prepared for the day. It was a chance to demonstrate the progress they had made and to show the community that they were committed to change. As families began to arrive, The park outside the police station buzzed with activity. There were booths set up with information about community programs, opportunities for residents to engage with officers, and even a barbecue where everyone could gather and share a meal. Collins moved through the crowd, greeting residents and officers alike, feeling a sense of camaraderie that had been absent for so long. Maya was there, helping to coordinate the event. She spotted Collins and waved him over. "This is amazing, Jake. Look at the turnout," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "It feels good to see people coming together," Collins replied, a smile spreading across his face. "I think we're finally starting to make progress." As the afternoon progressed, Collins took note of the conversations happening around him. Families were laughing, asking questions, and sharing stories with officers who were genuinely interested in their experiences. It was a stark contrast to the tension that had once defined their interactions. When it was time for the panel discussion, Collins took a deep breath, knowing how important this moment was. He stood at the front alongside community leaders and fellow officers, ready to discuss the changes that had taken place. The moderator, a local journalist, welcomed everyone and began the discussion, asking about the significance of community policing. Collins spoke candidly, sharing his journey and the lessons he had learned. For too long, there has been a divide between law enforcement and the community. I've come to understand that it's essential for us to listen and to acknowledge the pain that our actions have caused. We must work together to build a safer, more equitable environment for everyone. As he spoke, he could see nods of recognition from the audience, a sign that the message was resonating. Community members began to share their thoughts, expressing gratitude for the initiative but also emphasizing the need for continued progress. One woman, whose brother had been a victim of police violence, stood up and spoke with raw emotion. "I appreciate the changes, but we cannot forget those who have suffered. We need to ensure this is not just a moment, but a movement." Collins felt the weight of her words. "You're right. We need to honor those stories and ensure that our actions reflect our commitment to change. This isn't just about improving relationships. It's about creating a system that prioritizes justice and accountability." The discussion continued, and as the sun began to set, Collins felt a sense of fulfillment. They were not just talking about change, they were actively engaging in it, creating a new narrative for Maplewood. It was a long road ahead, but there was hope in the air. As the event wound down, Collins found himself standing beside Maya, watching families gather their things and saying their goodbyes. "You did a great job today, Jake," she said, a proud smile on her face. "This is just the beginning. I couldn't have done it without your support," Collins replied, feeling a warmth in his heart. "It's incredible to see the community coming together like this." In the following weeks, the momentum continued to build. The police department implemented new policies that emphasized community engagement, and they began to see positive changes in their interactions with residents. Collins and his fellow officers worked together to foster trust and understanding, and the department began to gain the respect of the community it served. One day, as Collins was finishing up his shift, he received a call from Chief Ramirez. "Jake, I wanted to let you know that the City Council has approved funding for a community policing program. They were impressed with the work you've done and want to expand it." Collins could hardly contain his excitement. "That's amazing. This could really help us implement the changes we've been advocating for." "Yes, and I want you to lead the charge on this," Ramirez said, his tone serious but encouraging. "You've shown real leadership, and I believe you can make a significant impact." Collins felt a rush of gratitude and determination. "I won't let you down, Chief. I'll work hard to ensure we create a program that truly serves our community." As the program developed, Collins found himself engaging more deeply with residents. He encouraged them to participate in decision-making processes, to voice their concerns, and to be involved in shaping the future of their town. The program fostered a sense of ownership within the community, empowering residents to take an active role in their safety and well-being. One evening, Collins received an invitation to a community gathering organized by residents. They wanted to celebrate the positive changes taking place in Maplewood and express their appreciation for the officers who had committed to fostering a better relationship. As he arrived at the event, He was met with warm smiles and open arms. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and joy as families mingled, sharing food and stories. A local band played music, and children danced in the grass. Collins felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced before. It was a reminder of the power of community and the importance of connection. As the night wore on, a woman approached him. "Jake, I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done," she said, her voice sincere. "You've made a difference in our town, and we appreciate your efforts." Collins felt a surge of emotion at her words. "Thank you. It means a lot to hear that. We're all in this together, and I'm committed to continuing this work." As the gathering came to an end, Collins looked around at the faces of the people he had grown to care about. He realized that they were not just citizens, they were a community, a family united in shared hopes and dreams. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every moment of struggle and doubt. In the months that followed, Collins continued to work alongside community members and fellow officers to strengthen the bonds they had created. They launched initiatives that focused on education, youth engagement, and mentorship, ensuring that the lessons learned from past mistakes would not be forgotten. One day, as Collins walked through the park, he noticed a group of children playing soccer. He paused to watch, a smile spreading across his face. It was a reminder of the innocence and joy that had been overshadowed by fear and mistrust for too long. As he turned to leave, he saw Maya approaching. "Hey, what are you thinking about?" she asked, a knowing smile on her face. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," Collins replied. "It feels like we're finally creating the community we've always wanted." Maya nodded, her eyes shining with hope. "And we'll keep going. There's still so much work to be done, but we've built a foundation. Together, we can continue to make a difference." As they walked through the park, Collins felt a sense of peace wash over him. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but it had also been filled with moments of growth, understanding, and connection. He had learned the importance of humility, compassion, and the power of listening. In that moment, he realized that change was not just about policies or programs. It was about the people, the stories that connected them, the shared experiences that united them. And as the sun set over Maplewood, casting a warm glow over the park, Collins felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was committed to continuing the work, to ensuring that the voices of the community were heard and valued. Together, they would build a safer, more just Maplewood, one where understanding and compassion prevailed over fear and division. The journey was far from over, but with each step, they were forging a brighter future, one that honored the past while striving for a better tomorrow. Collins knew that as long as they continued to listen, learn, and grow together, they could create a community that reflected the values they all held dear. And in that realization, he found hope, strength, and the promise of a new beginning.